Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're talking about Star Wars Squadrons. So Star Wars Squadron is the latest Star Wars video game that just came out on October 2nd. As of filming this, it is the 4th, I believe. Today's the 4th, I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I ended up playing the game right at midnight as soon as it launched. I played for about an hour, and then I went to sleep because I was deadly tired, and then I woke up the next morning, and I was home alone, had nothing to do, had the day off, purposely took the day off just to play Star Wars Squadrons, and altogether on the first day I probably put about a good 15 hours or so into the game. I beat through the entire campaign. That took me about 8 to 10 hours, and then I played a couple of hours online. And what I could say about this game right out of the gate is I think it's without a doubt the best starfighter pilot kind of game that we've ever had themed around Star Wars. I think that it goes super deep into the lore of what it is to be a pilot in Star Wars, and I just thoroughly enjoyed the game. I thought the campaign was a good fun time. Now I'm going to get into some of my criticisms on this game and kind of give my take on it as the kind of gamer I am. But what I will say is I did thoroughly enjoy this game. I thought it was really, really good. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying the multiplayer, and I look forward to continue to playing the multiplayer and getting good at the game, and seeing what updates they release over time and seeing the game slowly expand, similar to what they did with Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm really hoping that over time, this game will continue to expand and become a little bit bigger than it is right now, which leads into some of my criticisms. Is that this game for me, by the end of playing 15 hours on that first day, I felt like it was very repetitive. I enjoyed the story. I thought it was a good time. I thought it was cool to see this back and forth between the Empire and the Rebellion, and to see this pretty small scale story in comparison to the big universe of Star Wars, and to have these small little Easter eggs and hints and nods and characters from the books and comics, or characters like Hera Syndulla from Star Wars Rebels, and having other characters and other things that were from non-film material make an appearance in this game, whether it's a small cameo, an Easter egg on a cosmetic attachment to your vehicle, or an attachment that you can put onto your clothing or stuff like that, or an actual character like Hera Syndulla, who came from Star Wars Rebels. The same voice actress plays her in here, and this is the most, or the closest we've ever gotten to seeing her in live action. So stuff like that, without a doubt, is what made this game for me. It's like little Easter eggs and hints and nods that expanded the overall universe. Whereas the story for me, though I did enjoy it and I thought it was cool, I thought that it was just okay. I think compared to the other campaign stories we've gotten in the current canon of these Star Wars games, the current games that they've released, I think Star Wars Battlefront 2's campaign with Iden Versio was a little bit more exciting for me and a little bit more cinematic. And I think the best story and the best game that they've released since Disney acquired Lucasfilm, without a doubt, has to be Jedi Fallen Order and the story of Cal Kestis, which I did a review for when I played the game at the end of last year. That, without a doubt, is my favorite Star Wars game that they've released under this new, set of games. And we've only gotten 4, including this one. So what I can say right out of the gate is that what I loved about this game was the fact that we have this game. Growing up as a kid, one of my favorite things about Star Wars games was the variety of Star Wars games that there were. Whether it was games from the 80s and 90s that I grew up kind of being able to inherit and continue to play, or the games that were coming out around the time of the prequels that were themed around the prequels, or games that would come out after the prequels, or just around that time in general that touched on different eras of Star Wars. There was always different kinds of Star Wars games, whether it was RPGs, action-adventure games, vehicle-based games like this, different things like the X-Wing games or Rogue Squadron, all these different kinds of games. Sometimes you'd have different versions of the same game, but because they were on different consoles, they kind of had to be a little bit different to kind of adapt to that specific console. And then there was games that were specific to certain consoles. And overall, there was a huge period of time in my childhood where there was this huge saturated market of Star Wars games. So when LucasArts was announced that it was going to be closing, and that they were going to be closing LucasArts and that wasn't going to be a thing anymore, I was definitely concerned and worried to see where they would go moving forward. However, I was really happy to see that they were going to be putting out new Star Wars games. And when they released Star Wars Battlefront, the reboot of it, the game was fun. I played a lot of it with my friends. It was just like a very straightforward Star Wars shooter where you could play as certain characters, but I felt that it lacked a lot of content compared to the previous Battlefront games that had come out when I was younger. And then Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out, and there was a lot of issues as far as microtransactions and things like that when the game first launched. But with the updates that they've put out, and with the campaign and the expanded campaign that came out afterwards, and all the updates that have released since, that game has really become something incredible. I really love what they turned Star Wars Battlefront 2 into today. If you put that game in today and you play online, there are tons of characters from the movies, tons of characters and clothing and little Easter eggs from things that are not movie related, like cosmetic outfits like Darth Maul. You get the cybernetic legs and stuff like that, that I feel like they've really done everything they can to expand it as much as they possibly can and make it this huge, big action adventure shooter Star Wars game. And I think without a doubt, I think of the newer games, it has probably the most replay ability. And then they did Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which without a doubt is the pinnacle of Star Wars action adventure RPG titles. I don't think there's really many other games that can hold a candle other than something like maybe Knights of the Old Republic. But as far as gameplay, smoothness, graphics, and story, Jedi Fallen Order has to be one of the best Star Wars games that has ever been released, if not the best. So Star Wars Squadrons, going into it and after playing the campaign, I found the campaign to be a good time. I thought it was cool, but I did find the missions to be very redundant. You know, it just is what it is. You had different characters, you know, telling you what to do. The story in between, you know, the actual missions, you know, was expanding and kind of letting you know where we are in the story. The story of this takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi. And so, yeah, you know, watching the story unfold was definitely cool. I love Star Wars so much. You guys already know this. I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt, Star Wars thing here, Star Wars stuff behind here. I love Star Wars so much. It goes without saying. So being able to be immersed in that universe again with great graphics and cool new characters, as well as characters we know that have not made an appearance like this, like Hera Syndulla, like I mentioned, to see her in the closest we've ever seen her to live action was amazing with the same voice actors. I loved all that. But by the end of the story, I just felt that it wasn't nearly as impactful or as emotional as I was hoping it would be. I wanted to be more gripped into the story, and I just didn't feel like I cared too much for the characters other than just enjoying seeing them and being on these missions with them. And then the missions themselves were pretty samey, which just kind of be characters telling you to go there, destroy this, we got to destroy this, we got to shoot out these starfighters, and that was essentially the gameplay. And by the time the story was over, I just felt that it was a little bit redundant, and after playing through that entire campaign and then playing a few hours online, I just got a little bit burnt out on the very samey gameplay throughout the entire thing. And like I mentioned, the graphics of the game are great. I really enjoyed the gameplay and how smooth the game plays. And let's get a little bit into the gameplay. One of the best things about this game is how deep they went into the lore and making you truly feel like a star pilot in Star Wars. I loved what they did with this whole game. So the whole game is first person only. You're inside of the cockpit and have all these different vehicles, and you can actually turn your head around, and the game is actually able to be played entirely in VR. So after playing the game, I almost feel like the game was intentionally made primarily for VR because of certain moments in the game, and I'll get into it in just one moment. But yeah, watching people play it with VR headsets and like kind of like actual I don't know what the actual term for them are, but the joysticks that people use for like flight simulators and all that jazz, I'd be able to see people doing that. I watched a ton of gameplay online of people actually playing with those different controls with like an actual like setup, and they had the the VR headset. It seemed way more immersive. It seemed like that's the way to play this game, honestly. Playing with a controller regularly was a little bit challenging, and that's something I kind of have to praise, but also was a negative for me, was that the game is very challenging to get used to. After 15 hours of playing it on the first day and a couple of hours playing it in these days leading up to this review, I still am struggling to get a real control of the controls and getting good at flying. So this is a game that, and it's a good thing, like it feels like a challenge. It doesn't feel like a game that people could just pick up the controls and just be good at. You have to get yourself accustomed to the gameplay and get yourself accustomed to the way the ships work and all of the different parts of the controls that make it very, very complex. And there's a negative side to that because it can be a little irritating at times, but there's a good side of that because it's a little bit challenging. And I'm a pretty well-versed gamer. I play about 20 hours of games a week. I would say that's just an average. I love playing video games. I've been playing since I was a kid, so usually I'm able to pick up a game, and after getting past the tutorial or something like that, and probably about like an hour into the game, I feel really good with the controls. And this is very different for me because I definitely did not feel that way. And I'm not really one for vehicle-based games or one for flight simulator games. So, I was very concerned to see how I would feel about this game over time. But what I can say is I did really enjoy the game, and I'm just happy that we have variety now. Of these new 4 Star Wars games, we've got 2 shooter action adventure games with the Battlefront games, and then we got this great action adventure RPG with Jedi Fallen Order, and now we have Squadrons, which is this first-person vehicle-based starfighter game. And I love that this game exists. I have friends who love starfighters and star pilots, and those are their favorite stories and characters in Star Wars, so I know that they're loving this game. And This game, I think, was made for people like that, or people who are into flight simulators. But if you're like me and you prefer maybe some shooters or action adventure titles, you may not be in love with this game. And I think that's what I can say is I really did thoroughly enjoy it. And as a Star Wars fan, there's so much here for me. But I can't say that I necessarily was absolutely in love. So let's get a little bit into the gameplay, because I completely forgot and kind of rambled. One of the coolest things is how deep they got into the lore of the actual way that these ships work within Star Wars. If you guys have ever watched a Star Wars movie, I'm sure you've heard somebody say, divert all power to the engines, or divert all power to the shields. You can literally do that as you're playing. So mid-battle, you have the ability to divert all of your energy to the shields, to the energies, to your lasers. You can literally, at one point too, if you're flying towards an enemy who's shooting at you, you can change it so that the shields are all kind of diverted to the front side of your ship, and you're able to take more damage in the front. So as a Star Wars fan, just to have a Star Pilot game like this that is so in-depth when it comes to the lore and the way that these cockpits and these ships work, and the way that they have the ability to divert power to different elements of the ship and control it all, I thought that was awesome. It takes a little bit to get used to, I won't lie. That's what I was saying before, is like it's a good thing and a bad thing how challenging this game is. It can be frustrating, but when you do nail certain moments that you've kind of worked to get better at, it makes for a pretty awesome feeling and awesome moment. So yeah, that whole element of being able to kind of really take full control of your ship is really what I enjoyed. Now, when it came to the gameplay, especially online, one thing that I feel was taking away from my experience, even if I enjoyed the way the game looked, felt, played, and all that, was the element of essentially just kind of doing somersaults. You know what I mean? You and sometimes an enemy are trying to kill each other, and you're just doing circles around each other, just trying to kill each other. Maybe you shoot each other a couple times, then you kind of lose sight of each other, and you're just doing circles and circles and circles until somebody crashes or somebody else flies in and sees you guys doing circles and takes you out. You know what I mean? You try to take off from that person who was shooting at you before, because you're like, all right, I just won't deal with that guy. Now he's on your tail and he'll just take you out. So there are these moments where you're just flying in circles trying to take people out, and which is a big criticism that I heard from some people, and I think it's something that is kind of keeping me from being in love with the game, is that just the way that the game is set up, and sometimes how slow it is to turn your ships, even though you can do things to change that. There are just moments where you're just doing somersaults and circles trying to take people out, and it can lead to a little bit of a redundant feeling as you're playing it. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the game. It's just something for me as a gamer who isn't really into vehicle-based games. I'm not really into flight simulators, and even in something like Star Wars Battlefront 2, the Star Pilot missions, the online mode where you can do the space battles, that stuff wasn't always my favorite. I always loved how it looked. I always loved how smooth it played and all that jazz. And similar to this, I love how smooth it plays. I love how it looks and how great it is. But after playing the campaign and playing some online, I'm not sure how much longer I'll really be deep into the online of this game. I definitely plan to play it a lot more. I have some friends who have it, so we're going to play some. And hopefully over time I'll get a lot better at the game and be able to enjoy it. But yeah, I did enjoy the game, but I do want to be honest about how I'm feeling, but also take into account what kind of gamer I am. And the one last thing that I'll mention before I wrap this up, because I'm rambling a lot longer than intended. When you're playing the game, one of the coolest things that I was excited for was that you were actually able to create your own characters. Now, like I mentioned, the story takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi, and in the game, you actually bounce between the Empire and the Rebels, and you have, this group of Rebellion fighters and this group of Imperial fighters that you're working with. And when you're not in missions, right? Number one, when you create your own character, I was really excited about that, because Star Wars and these latest games have all been about canon. A lot of the books and comics and everything has just been so heavily about canon. So when I saw that you could create your own character, it kind of was like, cool, like everybody's going to be able to kind of have a smaller, different experience when it comes to the story, but not really. Your character ends up never really saying anything other than when they're in the actual cockpit and you're maybe like, directing your team to go and shoot something or, anything like that, maybe to defend something. But when they're actually being spoken to, your character is just a voiceless character who doesn't speak at all. It's just the character speaking to them, and that's how the story is expanded on. And then when you're not in the ship, the stuff in between where you get like the briefings or you get to know these other characters, this is where I was mentioning that it almost feels like it's almost intended mainly for VR. You guys, when you watch like a VR gameplay or you've ever played a VR game, that you can kind of point where you want to go and you click and it kind of ports you there. it's similar to that, where when you're in the base of your team and you're waiting to, you know, go do the briefing, or you're looking to talk to other players or other characters, I mean, you're standing there and you essentially, you can't walk. You can't walk when you're outside of the ship. You are just standing still, and you have to point at where you want to go and click on it, and then your character kind of, like, the screen fades out really quickly. Your character is there, and now they're talking to your character, and then as soon as that discussion ends, it blacks out the screen again and ports you back to, like, the main spot, and again you're just kind of pointing and clicking. So that was a bit of a turnoff for me. I was hoping that even though majority of the actual missions and all the missions would all be Star Pilot based, I was hoping that I could still walk around when you're, like, in the base, being able to go talk to players, so, or characters, I mean. So, you know, that was kind of a bit of a bummer that it just kind of felt like a point and click when you're not in the ship. But overall, I thought the game was good. The game is $40 right now, so I think if you are a big Star Wars fan and you want to support the franchise, definitely go and check it out and get the game. As a Star Wars fan myself, even though I felt some of these negative elements about it, even though I really enjoyed the game, I'm glad and happy to have spent $40 and given them the full price of the game. I'm glad also that they knew that this wasn't something that really felt like a $60 game. And for me, I think in some ways, I feel like it's not even worth the $40, but I'm happy to have given them the money because I want to support games like this so they continue to make more Star Wars games. I look forward to seeing what they make next. I would love to see a pod racing Star Wars game, a modern day one. I would love to see a modern day, you know, Star Wars RPG similar to something like Skyrim or Dragon Age. There's so many cool things they can do, so I look forward to seeing what's next on the Star Wars lineup. I think they've given us 4 really different and fun games. Obviously, the 2 Battlefront games being the most similar, but they're very different from each other on their own. And I love that we're getting a little bit more variety with a Star Pilot-centered game, so I look forward to seeing what's next. But I would recommend, though, if you're not dying to play this game, check out some gameplay, see if it interests you, you know, watch a good amount of it, and if it does interest you, check it out. If not, wait for a sale, I would say. I think this is a game that's worth waiting on a sale to check it out, but I am enjoying it. I look forward to getting better at the gameplay over time as I play a little bit more online. Thank you guys for sitting around and listening to me ramble about Star Wars and a video game for a while, and as usual, you guys can catch me in the next one. Hit that like button, comment down below. Have you played this game? Have you not played this game? Are you going to pick it up? You know your thoughts. Comment them down below. Subscribe if you guys want to see more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.